Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am Laura Matukaita, Media and Communication Manager at Expereo Community. Welcome to today's CC-Webinar.Live keynote and knowledge sharing session, and thank you for joining, everyone. We would like to also thank Expereo for sponsoring today's CC-Webinar.Live session. For audience, if you have any questions, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. And at the end of the discussion, we're also going to have some time assigned where you will be able to ask questions verbally by clicking on the raise hand button and allowing me to unmute you. Now, I would like to welcome Eric van Stockholm, CEO at VSC, to introduce our keynote speaker and later on to moderate the session. So over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Laura, and good to see you again. And thank you for the CARE community to make all of this happen. So hi friends and hi partners of our industry. My name is Eric, and I'm happy to be here and to moderate the session for you. What we're going to do is actually we will have the, as you know, the CC-Webinar.Live panel discussion and knowledge session here, where we're going to share all the information you want to know and we have in our pockets. So. And to do that, we have a nice topic of today, which is actually all about the digital transformation. So building new technology structures and probably business models, and to see actually as a subject matter expertise to how next generations like 5G or software-defined technologies like SD-WAN is actually reshaping actually our industry. And the networks, how are they changing everything we're going to work with? So for this, I'm very happy and very proud to have René de Baardemaker as a Director of Supplier Management at Expereo with us today. And thank you again for sponsoring this session. Big thanks to Expereo and to you, René. Next to that, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see a couple of panelists. So we'll do a quick 15 to 20 minutes presentation from René from Expereo, then a quick Q&A, and then I'll give the time to my fellow panelists like Tofik and Ian and Bernard, and to introduce themselves. So just quickly so you know who's on board on the panel, and we're going to discuss the digital transformation. So again, thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully you stay with us for the next coming hour, and because it will be interesting and you will get to know a few things more. So René, welcome again to you and to Expereo for being here. Now, René, before we move on, I saw something last week, some new thingy from Expereo. So what did you do? Are you buying the whole industry now? Or, I mean, I know you're Dutch, but and a Dutch company, you're doing quite well and you're a global player. But can you enlighten us a little bit? What happened?
Yeah, so we have been monitoring a company which is called ComSafe for quite a few time. They are a really disruptive player in enabling online quoting, online procurement, but also provisioning and trouble ticketing via APIs and very intelligent solutions. And we are, of course, building our Expereo One portal. I'll touch it in the presentation a little bit later on. But yeah, this was for us a frog leap to enhance and quickly roll that functionality into Expereo One and get the digital transformation going even faster. Okay, well,
Thank you, and congrats to Expereo. And so I would say full steam ahead, even in this period of time, right?
Yeah, that was quite an exceptional situation. While the world most likely stopped, our business kept growing and growing, and we even were able to do this acquisition. So yeah, so big thanks to everyone that made it happen.
Okay, cool. Well done, and again, congrats. So, what are you going to talk about with us?
Well, we call it premium internet services. So what makes it premium, and how does it differ, and how can it help you in the current situation, but also when we when we go back to the office again. We all changed our habits. Our users are all acting differently. We're using different apps, and I'll explain two portions of that, how we can help and how we manage our own network in creating these services.
Okay, cool. So I'm happy to give you the floor and to take it away and to share with us, let's say, the knowledge and what actually premium internet is, and from Expereo. So I would say thank you again, and welcoming the audience. I would say take it away.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here and to be able to share a bit of that knowledge. So let me see if I get this first time right in sharing my my screen and presentation. So what I called it is enjoying the service, and as already explained to Eric a little bit, what is premium internet? How does it differ? And I'm a big lover of food and restaurants and hospitality, so I always like to compare internet services with food, and I made three examples. It's like, imagine yourself sitting in the office, having a hard day at work. At the end of the day, you want to go home and you start thinking, I'm hungry. So you got a couple of options: going home, going to the supermarket. But when you commute back home, you see like all these kind of logos passing by, and you think, you know what? I might as well have a burger. So you drive into a drive-in, you grab your burger, and instantly, no hunger anymore. But after an hour, you start thinking, it's like, well, was this the right decision? Can I do this better? Is this a sustainable solution? Maybe not. So you make yourself a promise, and you tell yourself, okay, this Saturday, I'm going to spend a lot of time in cooking the perfect meal. I'm going to go to my favorite butcher. I'm going to go to the fish store. I'm going to go to a farm, get my fresh vegetables. I'm going to get all the best ingredients myself. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to cook my perfect meal. But then you suddenly realize that you're actually not a chef cook. So meaning that you're trying to cook a meal and you got all the perfect ingredients, but at the end, the meal is just a meal. It doesn't have that special edge. It doesn't have that special flavor because it's not your profession. So there are always people that can do it better. And to take it to the next level and compare it to premium services, the next time for a special occasion, let's say an anniversary or whatever, you're going to go to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. And basically, as soon as you enter that environment, you start looking at the website, you see pictures of perfectly made plates, nice tables with nice cutlery and interiors. And that journey continues. When making a reservation, people are polite. They ask you exactly, what do you want? Are there things that we should avoid? Does the chef have to make something special for you? Up until the moment that you actually arrive at the restaurant, maybe even valet parking, you walk into the restaurant, being greeted politely, a nice private table, a sommelier coming to your desk, explaining exactly what kind of wine he's going to serve, where it's coming from, what kind of special things that you need to look at, how it perfectly matches with your food, up until to the whole evening. Of course, you will see the newest cooking techniques, and at the end, you have a perfect experience. And actually, having these three examples that kind of perfectly relates to solutions that you can find on internet services, right? So if you take a small office where only one employee is working, he's in sales, the main application that he's using are Salesforce, Teams, and maybe Office 365. If that person is on a broadband connectivity that suddenly gets lost, he always has his mobile phone. He can turn his mobile phone into a 4G hotspot, connect his laptop to that, and continue working. Most likely there will be not much of a productivity loss. But however, if you look at the same site, but then imagine a factory where maybe 500 people will be working. There is a completely monitored and controlled supply chain management, including stock management. Maybe even machines or robots are being monitored online. When that site runs out of connectivity, you will have a big consequences. And this is also relating to when do you take the premium services. It's when that special occasion, and that special occasion might be personally an anniversary, but it might also be a big risk analysis on your site cost when connectivity goes down. So then suddenly COVID kicked in. No more restaurants anymore for quite a while, but an extreme need for high quality internet suddenly. So what we were thinking, and I'll take you to a couple of cases and examples that we faced with customers and potential customers during the COVID situation. And one of the main things that we have seen is companies that already went into that digital transition, either fully or partially, meaning adopting cloud services, meaning having an internet-centric based network. Sometimes even already have been deploying mobile security solutions or SD-WAN security solutions. The time frame that they needed to adapt to the current working environment, while maybe 90% of the workforce of them started to work from home, we're almost next to zero compared to where you have the point-to-multipoint MPLS network with some internet breakout with VPN tunnels coming into. You saw that they had a big challenge in adapting and giving the user experience as the employees would have in the office. And if I look at, for example, Expereo internally, for us there was actually no change. Well, it was a mental change. You started working from home, but from an application level, Teams was already integrated within our company. We already had a cloud-based phone solutions. All our primary business applications are hosted in the cloud. For us, it was a seamless transition. But even if you look at, for example, Teams, the first couple of weeks that we were using Teams, we noticed some hiccups, meaning that video was either slow or sluggish. But the big advantage is that these type of applications are hosted in the cloud. So Microsoft was able to adjust very, very quickly in adding additional capacity from a CPU perspective, but also from a bandwidth perspective, that those issues were solved. On the other hand, one of our customers that I talked to had a very secured Skype for Business internal server hosted on their site. Perfectly well considered years ago, because they want to have it absolutely secure. They wanted to have complete control on every content that would be out there. But usually the people that were using it were in the office, and maybe customers were dialing into that secure environment. But now it was the other way around. 90% of all the employees were dialing from outside towards that Skype for Business solution. They were not able to use any other application because of strict security policies within the company. And you saw that solution was breaking down. And especially in a time where collaboration tools like Skype for Business or Teams or whatever that you're using became so important, they lost that part of connectivity because the whole concept that they were used to was not valid anymore because of COVID-19. The whole world changed. More or less similar example is where companies were on an MPLS network and had their either internal hosted application service, and they had some of remote VPN connectivity for their employees to use. Also, these type of companies started to run into challenges in, do I have enough licenses for my VPN? Can all my employees connect at the same time? Is there enough bandwidth for my application? But next to those operational challenges, there were also practical challenges, is that we couldn't send an engineer out unless it was a critical defined business. So the need for capacity was there, but getting it installed was a second challenge. And then, of course, you also had the type of company that, due to the nature of the business, due to the activities that went on in that office, stayed open. And those also saw a huge increase from their office location towards these cloud-based applications, and also had immediate demands, and you're thinking about a factor 10 with certain companies. So those are struggles that we have seen as real-life examples, where companies with two different setups had two different challenges in cope with this this crisis. I want to highlight two particular things that we noticed that was very important, and one is coming from the IT or NOC managers, and already touched it a bit in the introduction with Eric, but insight. They needed insight. They needed to know exactly what was going on in their network. They needed to know how much capacity were they using on the link. Do they already need to upgrade? And of course, all the basic functionality is here. Network inventory management, trouble ticketing raising, and that kind of stuff. But the real smart stuff, the real intelligence is knowing per circuit what is actually going on an application level, if not all with an SD-WAN layer. So what we try to do here is create an overlay on top of the existing SD-WAN orchestra layers, if that is Silver Peak or the vEdge platform from Cisco, and make it easy to use, and make sure that at one glance you see exactly what is going on. I don't have the time and neither the knowledge to explain you everything in full detail on that, but I'm sure that if you reach out to us after the presentation, one of the experts will more than happy to give you a real-time demo on the application, what it can do, and all of these nifty details. Yeah, and this is also where we are going to benefit from the acquisition from ComSafe by enhancing it even more and faster than we predicted to do. So having insight was a big demand from the NOC and IT managers on their network to help them in making sure that their network stayed up and that they were proactively managed and that they know what was going on and could also act before any other issue would arrive. But yeah, I'm going back to the office already. Right now I'm at home, but I'm already 2 weeks every morning in the office, and I see more and more people coming back. And personally, I think we're habit creatures. Yes, there will be changes in frequency, but moreover, we will see a difference in behaviors. All the means and apps that we have been using shifted towards cloud applications from internal online collaboration. People working in 2 shifts from home, they will still need to communicate and work together. So what we expect and what we're already seeing is that the whole traffic pattern that used to be in the office needs to shift very quickly because of the demand of the user and because of the forced migrations that these companies went through in going to cloud adopted services. So that's one of the things that we think that we can also help them with. And this is where it relates again to the Michelin star service, right? This is our core premium service. years ago, we started building what we call cloud acceleration hubs. Those are locations across the globe where we aggregate all traffic from our customers and offload it on the internet via multiple IP transit, via direct cloud connectivity, via internet exchanges. And on top of that, we run a software package, which is our cloud acceleration. I will try to avoid as much technical terms in explaining this, but what we want to prevent is delays. So you don't want to use a cloud application where you click a button and nothing happens. So by using this platform, we can ensure that the user satisfaction, both from the office towards the internet, but also from the home office towards your office location, in case you still have a server or an application running there. And I think that the easiest way to explain this is by thinking of a conventional roadmap. So whenever you wanted to go somewhere, you looked it up on the map and you started to look at all the roads and determine what the shortest route would be to get to your destination. You remember the exits on the highway and you planned your route. But nowadays, we all have Google Maps or Apple Maps or any other sat-nav guide to get you to your destination. It still will give you the shortest route, but as soon as you say start, it will gather a lot more information on top of that. And most likely within seconds, it will pop up and say, hey, this route currently has a road accident, which will cause you 26 minutes of delay. We advise you to take another route, which will save you 15 minutes in getting your destination. This is exactly what we're doing here. We're overriding the BGP protocol by not just looking at the shortest route, but at the optimized route, meaning that we will guarantee and we can actually measure that the route that we will taking towards your destination, whatever that destination is on the internet, will have the best public route available on the internet. It's still a public, but we will be able to ensure the best route. So the system scans all common known destinations or all known destinations that a lot of traffic, which for you specifically, goes to. As I mentioned in the beginning, our our accelerated hubs, they have multiple routes, multiple IP transit, cloud connectivity, where they can offload the traffic. Based on those destinations, on those prefixes, it's looking at what is the best route for that specific destination. It analyzes it, it makes real-time decisions because A might be the preferred option right now, but if A starts to do maintenance, or if everybody starts to use A, then maybe suddenly B is the best option to offload your traffic and get the best route towards your destination. So it does that continuously and reroutes automatically the traffic towards your destination. So what you get out of this as a customer, and especially with the growing, the expecting growing demand of high quality internet traffic in and from your office, this is something that will give you a huge customer experience that is really suited to the new needs of cloud applications and huge internet traffic. So back to normal. Two things that we will that we like to help you with in improving your connectivity towards the internet now and in the future, and giving you even more insight in your network. So yeah, back to normal, but maybe a bit better. And that's it for me, Eric.
Okay, Rene, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing, let's say, the platform one and all the accelerating tools by changing the BGP, what Expereo does. I'm just quickly looking if there are any questions in the chat box. I didn't see them, so I really think that you are absolutely clear. But But let me give you an answer or a question, and maybe the our fellow panelists, they also might have a question. I don't know, but can you give me? I mean, within the COVID-19 situation, I think that Expereo must have received those emergency calls by saying, "Help me, help me now." Can you share with us, let's say, a use case? Where you say, well, this is typically what happened, and where you could see that clients or possible clients were not fully into the digital transformation yet, or as such not prepared yet, as much as you could be prepared. But I mean, it is actually the COVID-19 gave us not only socially and within our countries, but also on the products and on our services and how we are organized, even in companies, especially on the IT and the telco sector. It gives us, let's say, a bigger glass of where we actually stand. That's what COVID-19 did. So is there something you can share with us? Let's say a use case, an example where you got that hot telephone and that.
Yeah. So we have some appreciated customers that are heavily involved in developing a tested method for COVID-19 based in the UK. They did a lot of research. A lot of researchers from them were working from home, but needed capacity on their office to do important calculations. I think we got a call on Saturday evening. We're out of bandwidth. We need an upgrade right now. And due to the excellent relationships that we have with our suppliers, this was in the UK, where it was a complete shutdown. So all the engineering capacity was allocated to break and fix and maintaining the network up and running. So there were no new installs. But together with the customer writing letters, stating clearly what they're doing, what they're using, and how it's beneficial to the world if they get that additional bandwidth. And yes, we were able to, I think we could have done it on Monday, but actually on Tuesday evening. So over the weekend and on Tuesday evening, they got upgraded towards a 1 gig XCA connectivity to ensure their progress. And yeah, you can imagine they were extremely happy.
I can absolutely imagine that, because I wouldn't have been in their shoes.
No. Especially if the pressure is on that much, and it's of course their business. The sooner they get that test, and the better it is. It has a huge financial benefit for them, of course.
Yeah, so it was absolutely system critical. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just quickly looking at if I see some other questions coming in. Any questions maybe from my fellow panelists, Bernard, Tofik, Ian? Maybe some questions for René? If not,
yeah, René, Tofik. Yeah. So the situation might be a bit different here in the Southeast Asia market, where the connectivity portion is still quite behind, I would say, from the West market. So when COVID-19 happened, a lot of things are moving into digital and stuff. How fast did you see the need of bigger bandwidth in your market?
Really depends per industry. We've also seen industry that were hugely travel related that suddenly didn't need that much anymore. I can't put a percentage on it, but the example that I just gave was a factor 10 that was immediately needed, and I think 5 to 10 would be a good example.
Yeah, we had. We had from the major cloud providers. We're talking Microsoft, Google, etc. We had, within that month, we had about 1 terabit of capacity installed across the Pacific. Just to give you an idea, it was just It was Microsoft was probably the biggest because of Teams.
Yeah.
That was a huge. The Microsoft just went absolutely crazy. So did Cisco. Cisco WebEx 10 times increase.
Amazing.
40 to 400 gig of WebEx.
Yeah, so free capacity, you know, free premium account that were given by Cisco and Microsoft. Of course, that would drive the traffic, right? Yeah.
Collaboration tools was the biggest growth by far. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from Renee? No, I'm just quickly looking with one eye on the chat box. No. So, Renee, thank you very much. Expereo, thank you very much for sharing the information with us and what actually is the premium internet and how does it differ and why is it essential in the current and the future situation. So, thank you very much for sharing this with us. And by saying this, and you heard them already, and as I mentioned before, we have some fellow panelists here, and Renee will be one of them. So again, welcome, Renee. And I'll give them quickly a word to introduce them quickly. So Bernard, thank you, an honor to have you back on the block, back on the panel. So please, just take it away and introduce yourself quickly.
Bonjour,
please.
good afternoon, guten Tag. So Bernard Push here, I'm the global practice lead for internet at Telstra, Asian carrier, but I'm based in Paris, France. As socially distanced from my colleagues as you can possibly be.
Oh, I can imagine. Merci, Bernard. Taufik, we'll stay, let's say, at that part of the globe, from a headquarter point of view.
Yeah, my name is Taufik from IX Telecom, and we also have a sister company, IX Global, in the manpower services. I'm on the other side, so it's nighttime over here in Malaysia. So I was trying to lighten, you know, the room and stuff. It's quite dark. But yeah, good to see you guys and good to have a discussion together. We are in similar business, I guess, with Expereo, providing internet services all over the world.
Okay, thank you, Taufik, and thank you for staying up so late because I know we have a time difference with Asia. So thank you for being here. Over to you, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm Ian Oliver. I'm head of solutions for Nokia in UK and Ireland. So I guess I'm the vendor voice on the panel this afternoon, and we and my team work across the technology portfolio in Nokia, looking to work with our customers around building end-to-end solutions that are going to add value into their business.
Okay, Ian, thank you very much, and as well to all the panelists. Honored to have you on the panel again. So good to see you again. So we talked about it already a little bit. I mean, the big word is of course digital transformation, and then but quickly to understand, and I want to discuss this with the fellow panelists. What we actually are talking about, and Renee, we heard you already, so I'll move to, let's say, so how, let's say, did COVID-19 actually accelerate the pace of the digital transformation? Bernard, you just pinpointed already on that one, that you increased with a couple of terabytes, but Ian, maybe on your side, what did you see that COVID-19 accelerate the pace of the digital transformation? How big is the need? What do you see?
Oh, I think Rene touched on it in his presentation. Actually, obviously the need for capacity increases because of the changing traffic profiles and the changing working. And also the increase in the use of tools, online tools that we wouldn't have used previously. In the UK here, Ofcom have just published their Online Nation report, which alluded to some of the areas that Bernard and Rene were talking about. You know, where we see a massive increase in, I think, a 4 times increase in the use of online conference services in the UK. So I think that there was obviously a huge influence on increasing capacity, and I think it points quite well to the fact that operators and service providers reacted very quickly to that in the market, and points to some level of agility in their ability to react to it with vendor partners to deliver that capability. I think for me, one of the areas that Rene mentioned in terms of trying to increase the capacity for this customer that he had in the UK, and a number of service partners that they deal with, actually looking at focusing on break, fit and maintenance of the existing network, I think might actually have an impact that pushes out some of the benefits that service providers are looking at with regards to transformation, because their focus in the last few months has actually been on the delivery of capacity and capability within the network. So I wonder whether, because of the ability of operators and service providers to deliver this flexibility in the network, some of those long-term programs that they might have been looking to realise the benefits of digital transformation might have actually been pushed out. I don't know what the other panelists think on that, but certainly I think the focus has very much been on maintaining, providing critical services and connectivity for customers.
Okay, thank you. Bernard?
So I think one interesting aspect actually that we've found is that, you know, everyone talks about the internal company effects on COVID, but actually I think what most companies forgot was, especially large ones, they have a lot of BPO. So using you know, Indian call centers or Philippines or Malaysia as well, and they hadn't really, you know, kind of working at home, and tools, internet-based tools and all that kind of stuff was already prepared in there for their corporate teams. I mean, in our case, a lot of our people are based in Hong Kong, and there'd been all of the riots in Hong Kong from November onwards. So we kind of had an infrastructure already built up, ready for people working from home. But when COVID hit, it actually hit the entire world. So we suddenly found BPO organizations that we were working with who weren't maybe quite so prepared for this kind of environment, and that's where we really had to put the effort, actually, to be honest. That's yeah, that's probably the biggest sticking point, and maybe something we learned out of the whole exercise, that you know, places like India and Philippines and Malaysia, where call centers and certain outsourcing activities were there, were still focused around people working in the office, and that had not really been thought about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Bernard. Tawfiq, so from your point of view, let's say in Asia, how did it affect, and how did COVID-19 accelerate actually the pace? What did you do? What did you see in let's say your region of the world?
Yeah, let me, Eric, throw something interesting, I think, to the table. You know, before COVID-19, especially in the, you know, end of December, January, people are all talking about 5G. Everything is 5G, you know, how fast can we roll out, and who will be the dominating equipment provider and stuff. But when COVID happened, I think all of those has been pushed back. I'm not sure, you know, from the perspective of equipment provider itself. But I've seen that, a lot of things that was planned for 5G deployment has been stopped, and people are just focusing on, so small business trying to survive, trying to, find the correct position for their companies, pivoting, and also on the small scale, how do they actually get their people working from home? Because it's not something known here in this side of the world. People don't normally work from home. They have to go to the office. Even though you don't have anything to do, you still have to go to the office. That's the culture on this side. So a lot of companies are just trying to, set it up that you have to be able to work from home. What does it take? How about the security issue? How to work on the conference? And, I think almost for about a month, people were still struggling whether should we use Zoom or Cisco or Microsoft. Is it safe to use Zoom? Those kind of things. And it's, all
Sure.
of the other things has been, stopping. So it's interesting to see.
Okay, thank you. Renee, I mean, you gave us already, let's say, one or two examples, but coming back, because I saw a question from Karsten Schiefner coming in actually, and maybe you can combine it as well. And he was actually asking if the premium internet is still based on regular best effort internet. If that's still the case, then maybe you can bridge this to let's say maybe you can share with us another story how the COVID-19 or the current situation actually accelerated the pace of the digital transformation. And maybe because you're a global player, and as Tawfiq said, well, we had some issues. There are some issues in let's say in Asia, but I know you're a global player. You're in Singapore, you're in the US, you're everywhere. Maybe you can give us an example of, let's say, a difference in several regions.
Yeah, let me try to answer the question. So is premium internet still based on regular best effort internet? Well, the internet isn't that bad, but you don't get any guarantees like you would have with an MPLS or a point-to-point dedicated circuit. So that is indeed a difference between those two technologies. On the other hand, since it has so many options, it's also a lot more robust and resilient than a single point-to-point connectivity. And it depends on, so if we're talking about our XCA or premium solution, to tell a bit on how it technically works is that we will build a dedicated circuit, so a layer 2 circuit, back to our XCA hub in country. So that part is already guaranteed. Depending on where your traffic is going as of the point where our XCA hub is, it might be a direct connect to Azure. So are you still talking about best effort internet? In that case, not, but because you actually almost have a dedicated circuit running into that cloud application. What you also see with a lot of content providers, they all have cached or copies of that content hosted next to the internet exchanges that are also directly connected to our XCA platform. So combining the software and combining with all the options and the connectivity that we have at those hubs, it really depends where you're going, if you can say this statement is true or that it's partially true. So for example, if you would go to a Zscaler node that is located in another country, yes, then you will partially use the internet. But we can guarantee you that on that public internet, you will get the best route towards that destination. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because I see it on the chat that he's happy with your clarification.
So coming back, did we see regional differences? Not that much. There was an increase in demand on all regions. So we've seen customers accelerating their programs. They're migrating from traditional to, let's call it, new software-defined internet-centric networks. we've seen a lot of new customers coming in with RFPs and requests and say, hey, we didn't plan this for the next 2 years, but we now do want to go ahead with it. And some of them already took that decision 2 years ago, but they're huge companies that take a bit longer to get that. So I wouldn't say that we have seen huge differences within the regions.
Okay, thank you. Bernard, as well as a global player, Telstra, I mean, you as you mentioned before, you got a huge demand from your clients and from your customers. And next to the, let's say, the increase of volume and the demand, you know, to have more internet and whatever, and the growth, did you also see, let's say, did you experience some quality change that clients really want or demand?
So
not only on the quantity, but also, let's say, on the qualitative part of the
look, we certainly actually had a growth of I mean, so traffic grew about on the internet side of our business. Okay, so basically we touch, in inverted commas, the internet in three kind of ways, right? Number one, as I said, we're kind of a supplier to the global cloud players like Microsoft, Amazon, etc., who buy big pipes between the big data centers around Asia, typically from us. Secondly, we run our own internet backbone across Asia, so kind of multi-country backbone, interconnected countries. And then thirdly, we run a local domestic network in Australia where we are the incumbent carrier. So the big growth was from those players who wanted to connect their data centers using Teams and all that kind of stuff. That's what Microsoft were doing. In Asia, we had also around 30 to 40% growth in traffic, and there we did actually see a lot of. So I mean, the big advantage we kind of have, I guess, is we control our own. One of the few carriers that controls our own fiber infrastructure. So it just makes it, so we own our own submarine cables, makes it easier to upgrade when capacity increases. So we were able to increase capacity by about a terabit actually total to make sure that when the traffic spike hit, which, as I said, was about 40% or so, that we didn't start getting congestion. But we were hearing quite a lot of congestion issues generally in the network as some of the traffic was just you're getting packet drops and that kind of stuff in some cases. The good thing in Asia, I think, which probably helped to reduce the effect as well, was Asia is known for having a lot of cable cuts because it's sat on the ring of fire. You've got earthquakes and stuff in Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, etc. None of those. So fortunately, during COVID, there were no major earthquakes. I think if there'd been earthquakes and cable cuts at the same time, there probably would have been more effect. You probably you don't get that too much of an issue being in Europe or really on the North American continent because you're sat on a single tectonic plate. So there's not that much intra-regional problems with that. But it's more the case in Asia. So I mean, it could happen. I mean, as I said in a recent presentation, I mean, this isn't over yet, right? I mean,
correct.
It's definitely not over.
We're in the middle of it.
So yes, it's kind of gone down back to a little bit back to normal, not quite back to normal, but there could easily be spikes as we've been seeing in parts of Asia with local lockdowns and all the rest of it, and in Asia specifically, the typhoon season is kind of starting now. Which usually is the time when cable cuts start to happen. And then in Australia specifically, starting in September, October, you got what's the fire season, right? The Australian fire season, when it gets hot and you get massive. So you kind of, fortunately, there wasn't a kind of I mean, COVID itself was a disaster, but there wasn't another disaster with it, which kind of helped. So
luckily,
it was probably the internet held up. I was also hearing that there was about a 40% increase in DDoS attacks during COVID as well, which so we implement a lot of DDoS mitigation techniques on our network as standard. We don't. It's not specifically chargeable. We do it to protect our own infrastructure, but that may have also had some effect. I heard in some European markets, DDoS attacks also started congesting some networks from time to time.
Unfortunately, yeah, they never sleep. They never sleep.
They never sleep, and unfortunately, when you've got all of your users having to go through those same gateways, that can be DDoS attack. Then that can also cause issues. So yeah, I think that may have caused some issue. But we actually, interesting, we really didn't see any particular problems. I mean, it actually helped us to create a hell of a lot of goodwill amongst our customers. I mean, our customer kind of satisfaction seems to have increased quite dramatically over this period. It's one of those, when everything's as normal, it's difficult to kind of get customers' attention. But when it's really bad and things keep working, then your satisfaction levels seem to increase a lot.
Okay. So if we do see that, let's say over the last 6 months, we saw a huge increase of the demand, and that people also have the mirror glass in front of them, who would tell them, hey, I missed the boat, or I should actually accelerate now, even if in some parts of the world they put it back. But people do acknowledge that the digital transformation is actually there, and you should be on that. You should be on that track. Now, Ian, I want to come to you, and especially on the 5G side. Can you share with us how new technologies can reshape actually products and service portfolios which are being developed? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure, Eric. I'll try and do that. I guess for us at Nokia, we see 3 areas from a technology perspective, possibly 4, where technology is shaping the opportunity for service providers to deliver new services. So 5G being certainly one of those, and we know certainly within the UK market and in the North American market and elsewhere globally that operators have rolled out enhanced mobile broadband services on 5G non-standalone type architectures. What we believe that we will see in the coming months is the adoption of the 3GPP release 16, which is coming along. It's been slightly delayed, but it is coming along during the course of this year, and that combined with 5G standalone architectures that are going to enable services that will utilize low latency, mission critical type capabilities, and also massive machine type communication. So for example, the delivery of Industry 4.0 use cases into certain campus environments, as well as the delivery of other low latency capabilities, more perhaps for the residential market, such as gaming. And if we combine that with fiber technologies, GPON is pretty extensively deployed today. We are seeing the take up of XGS-PON, which is enabling operators to move to the delivery of higher speed bandwidths down to end customers, and then moving forward over the next 3 to 5 years, we think that 25 GPON will enable gigabit speed to be ubiquitously delivered to customers. and I guess the other area to touch on is distribution of computing capability closer to the edge. If we're talking about lower latency type use cases, so I think one of the panelists, it might have been Rene, was mentioning the use of manufacturing automation, you know, robotics within manufacturing plants. Then to control that, we need low latency. We need to move compute power, processing power close to where the use case is being delivered. So edge computing, the distribution of compute out to those sites, whether that's on campus or embedded within the network, but further out to the edge, will be an important part in terms of delivering newer services, I think, moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And another question, which is also related to the question from Nick in the audience as a participant, is actually, do you have any comments actually on satellite internet in relations to 5G? I know who I'm asking. So, so for instance, the SpaceX Starlink project. Can it be reliable enough, viable enough cost-wise and speed-wise? So talking about latency, compared to, let's say, other infrastructures. What's your take on that?
So I think we only need to look at the interest in some governments in taking stake in the OneWeb organisation that's recently gone into Chapter 11 in the States as being indicative of the fact that satellite-based communication has got a place to play within the overall delivery of services moving forward. So I think certainly that has a place. It will be very dependent upon the use case. So, you know, ultimately for low latency services, you can't get over physics. You know, so if you want a low latency service,
Sure.
going to the manufacturing automation, you need to deliver capability to process close to the edge of the network. But certainly I think you know, low Earth orbit, high altitude platforms, they do have a place to deliver communication within that whole 5G ecosystem beginning to develop.
I mean, yeah, I can maybe add to that on, you know, I mean, I know in Australia, we've rolled out 5G really initially in city centers, so high density environments. But, you know, Australia is a country with basically 5 major cities and a minimum of 1,000 kilometers of nothing between each one. And so rolling out to some of the more remote parts of those countries, satellite is a very, you know, is probably unavoidable in some areas and probably a good solution in others. And especially, you know, part of what COVID has done is accelerate, you know, remote diagnostics with doctors being able to look at patients. That's really been accelerated, I mean, massively. It was already deployed in Australia because of remote communities, but yeah, we've really kind of learned quite a lot about that over the last 3 months. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely still, I think, I can't see 5G being deployed in the outback just yet.
No.
Yeah. Let me add on a bit, Eric. I think
please, Tofik, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game where, you know, you have to choose the 5G or satellite, right? It has to both work at the same time. And like Ian said, you cannot go beyond physics. 5G is still gonna be better compared to the satellite. But, you know, when you want to reach a remote location, then yeah, you can start by using satellite first and then go over with 5G after some time, because deploying 5G at remote location will be a huge cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Renee,
think yeah, it's all about the use case, right? So as Ian explained beautifully, 5G has a lot of use cases, and they all differ a lot in what the underlying infrastructure should be. From our perspective, how we use 5G, it's basically just another option in last mile connectivity, as you wish, to connect our customers to the internet. And the same goes for the satellite. We've been already engaged for a couple of years, and it's too bad on OneWeb, because that one also sounded very, very promising. But the total bandwidth that you can share over, even if you double the amount of satellites, it's still pretty limited. But it will be an excellent solution, and you don't have to go to Australia, but even in France, you still have remote areas where there is absolutely no good connectivity, sometimes not even on 4G or on ADSL, where these typical broadband, asymmetrical broadband, low orbit satellites will find its place into the market. But also on mobility solutions, the remote doctors, perfect example, that you can have temporarily disaster recovery, but you will not see it in dense areas, at least not in the near future, because the capacity is just not there. But it will find its place next to 5G.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Renee, staying with you, how do you think new technologies will push us and have a huge impact on our service portfolios? I mean, what developments do we see within the software-defined networks and also the NFV space? What's your take on this?
So what you're seeing, and that's actually the beauty of a software-defined network. It continuously evolves. So if you would have bought a Cisco vEdge solution 2 years ago, and you look at the capabilities that it had 2 years ago with the same box, and you look at it right now, that's already a huge leap in advanced possibilities. You will see a lot more remote security solutions, especially people working more out of the office. Maybe even low-end SD-WAN type of solutions at home to provide security and optimized connectivity towards office locations. So those are the things that we're seeing, where there is still a big step to make is in how to efficiently manage, design, configure, and really start using the benefit of SD-WAN that it can bring over link balancing, optimizing applications, etc. And that's, I don't want to make it commercial, but that's of course something that we can help with in getting there. So that will develop over course. So there will still be called software-defined networking, but the features are being added almost on a daily basis. As mentioned, 5G, yeah, perfect. We will add it in our mix. We already have it where possible. We use it as a last mile. We're currently not engaged in having 5G internal networks in factories to, as Ian said, connect equipment and provide cloud computing and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So while you are seeing that a lot of people are working more remotely, I mean, Tawfiq 20 minutes ago mentioned that in Asia, the people, they have to go into the office and they hardly work from home. So Tawfiq, Renee was looking at was telling about telling us actually it's not a commercial proposition, but from my ex point of view, how do you see it, and you know, how can actually the technologies push us in a way, and what developments do you see in the SD-WAN, more, let's say, in your region of the global?
Yeah, Eric, I think you know, it's about solving the problem, not just innovating, but solving the real problem, where you see people in so-called, you know, the new normal that people are talking about. We are moving into automation. We're moving into less human touch. You know, so this is where SDN, NFB, SD-WAN solutions is coming to the right place where you can reduce the human touch. You can configure customer routers, equipment remotely. So this is really perfect timing actually for companies going into the digital solution. And I want to quote one thing that I read from the Harvard Business Review a few months back. They were saying that digital transformation is now risk mitigation. So it's not just an option anymore. Everyone is going into digital transformation, whether you know it or you don't know it. You started using video conference. That's digital transformation for you. You started talking to your employees remotely. That's digital transformation. So now it is about risk mitigation. It's about making sure that your employees' network are secure. Making sure that when they come back into the office, their computers are not affected with virus that will infect the whole office. So those are the kind of things that should be in the mind of employers and people now. It's not an option anymore. You're going into digital transformation whether you know it or not. So whether you are ready or not, you have to go into it. So whether you're in Asia, in the US, in the Europe, it does not matter. You have to really be into it and be prepared. So really, whatever the options or the solution is out there must be explored, and you must talk to the expert in the field. And just try to figure things out by yourself and just shooting in the dark.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Bernard.
I've maybe got an example actually of an NFV, which was kind of interesting, I thought. Very large number of Chinese young people go to a university in Australia. It seems to be the Chinese people from the people in the Chinese government try to send their children to Western universities. They were locked down in China and couldn't get back to Australia because of lockdown. So we used NFV. So we have an NFV farm in Shanghai. In Beijing, which we implemented Palo Alto firewalls. I mean, the ability was to scale the size of the firewall to within days enable these students to access their applications in Australia remotely from China. So one of the advantages of NFV is because you don't have any physical boxes to throw around anymore, you can actually react, in minutes or days to situations such as this one, which you couldn't do before. You had to deploy a physical piece of infrastructure. So there are new applications and solutions that can be implemented with NFV that you just literally couldn't do before, because you can now deploy the infrastructure literally on the fly. So SD-WAN just gives you that level of flexibility to deploy instantaneously a network and infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, especially in situations like COVID, it's just, you couldn't do it any other way, literally.
It's a necessity.
Yeah. So it was kind of an interesting use case for using NFV.
Mm-hmm. Okay. René?
Yeah, it also kind of relates to we all know burstable services available in data centers where it's pretty common to have a 10 gig port or a 100 gig port with a certain commit on it, and whenever you need it and use it, you pay as you go, more or less. We are implementing similar solutions, but then on customer locations. So basically they say, well, we want to have the option to go to 10 gig, but in normal circumstances, it will be 1 gig. This is also something then at a certain point, we don't need any human interference anymore in order to give the customer either the automatic upgrade, or either give them a new commit, which is all software defined in the network also. And yeah, I think that will be also very beneficial, especially if you can also downscale instead of if they're not going to use that office anymore for 3 months, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so gentlemen, we know digital transformation is there. SD1 5G will help us to support and to service actually our client and our customers. So Ian, just to start off with you, looking at the future, what developments can we expect? What do you see?
I think we've touched on a number of topics a little bit that are going to drive the future moving forward. I think the topic that Rene was just touching on, and Bernard as well, this ability to elastically scale infrastructure is going to require transformation within the operational support system that we use today, and that's going to lead to increasing automation within those fulfillment stacks to enable that to happen. I think it's happening today, as we've heard, with service providers that are automating that. But for me, one of the key areas in delivering this is increased automation within that operation. If we're looking at delivering end services, then certainly for we hear a lot about Industry 4.0 and the wish of enterprises to gain some of the benefits around transforming their operational technologies that they use today. And certainly from a Nokia perspective, we see that private wireless networks are going to be key to doing that and building that baseline capability on which enterprises can take some of the benefits from Industry 4.0, whether that's traffic automation within a specific area like a port or a manufacturing plant, or going back to the COVID-19 example, actual safe working distance between
I was about to say,
yeah, exactly. So surveillance built into everyday working based around 5G capabilities. So they're just two of the areas that I think from an operational support system to enable these, and also from an infrastructure and use case enablement perspective, that are going to drive us forward on delivering new and innovative services.
Okay, thank you. Tawfiq, how do you see the future? Well, what do you see? Well, what are the latest developments? What can we expect?
Let me say that the future is not just about technology advancement. It's about changing the way how human interact or operate with the existence of machines, robots. How do we actually because at some points robots can do things a lot better than us, more precise, faster and stuff. So how do we really change the way we operate, the way we think, the way we solve problems in the future, when with the integrations of robots, machines, pretty much going into the IR 4.0 that Ian been talking about. So that is where I think the future is. We can't just think that it's just a step-by-step process. It could be more than that. It could be really jump into something different. So I think to me personally, we are not. We haven't seen the real thing yet. How far can the technology advance? So the best thing is for us to really think, how do we, it's not just about advancement, it's about, how to change really the way we operate, the way we think. So it's a bigger concept than, just technology. That's what my take about the transformation.
Okay, thank you, Taufik. Bernard, what do you see coming?
What do I see coming? Look, I mean, yeah, Rene talked about some of it. I think is I think that certainly carriers, we're constantly trying to reduce our cost of delivery, but also working on more self-serve type applications. I think most carriers are still quite slow with regards to self-serve, but I think the current environment is likely to drive that kind of requirement to allow customers to self-provision a lot more. I think we're only just really starting to see what we can do with mobile SIMs. 5G will open up a bunch of new opportunities. We're already seeing we're seeing some interesting applications just in the IoT space at the moment in Asia with digital signage and cars that you can kind of click on the internet and reserve them in Singapore and then get through to someone in case there's a problem with it and all this kind of stuff. So I think certainly mobile technology, IoT will there's a lot more that can be done in that domain than currently being deployed. And also with SDN, I think the whole software-defined capability of networks. The capabilities exist, but I think people are still trying to figure out how to use it in companies. So the use cases are coming out. As I said, COVID has kind of unearthed some of them, and the more people get these, the more customers have access to these things that will find new ways of using it that we haven't looked at. Sometimes a situation such as we've just gone through helps to create a level of innovation because it's really changing the way we work, and it's likely. I think pretty well agreed by everyone now that working at home is going to be a much more commonplace activity. So that changes the whole way that societies are structured, which is likely to open up new business models as well, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Rene, last but not least, but so what do you see coming in what is scoping our let's say our future, and what latest developments do you see, and what from your perspective can we see? And by the way, one thing, Rene, because Bernard just mentioned it, is that the people are just exploring the SD-WAN and the SD network. So what are you doing to make sure that they do understand and they know the capabilities and possibilities with the SD-WAN? So two questions.
Hearing all the others speak, there's a lot of interesting out there, and if you look back when we started introducing, or the world started introducing 3G and 4G, they were like, well, what are we going to do with those speeds? What are you going to need it for, right? And suddenly it was there. The world was technically capable of getting that, and then people are amazingly creative, right? They stand up and say, it can do that. So what can we do? Oh, it's also got a camera. Oh, well, let's invent a game where you can hunt Pokemons in an AR environment, that kind of stuff. And people become creative. And maybe there is not a use case based on that technology, but there will be in the future. So I think we need to depend on the creativity of people. And I kind of disagree on the technology part, because enabling people with the technology, the future technology will boost their creativity in creating new apps and not a killer app, not a new Excel, but maybe something like that. I'm a big believer in what Ian said in the private wireless networks. I think you will see a lot of developments in there that will solve a lot of issues that currently were either too expensive or just weren't technically capable in already doing that IDs. I know there's a big pilot with BMW going on, and yeah, I think that's from a technology point of view. Enable people with the best technology and let them be creative to start using it. From an SD-WAN perspective, it's about we have so many options to choose for, and every option has their own benefits and their own limitations. Right now, what we try to do is really listen to that customer, understand what the solution is that he's looking for, what is the problem that we need to solve, but also can bring a lot of use cases that we already did previously on the table and say, okay, you might want to do this, but please consider that this is also an option. And we've seen huge benefits on operational zero-touch deployment. Let's call it one-touch deployment for now. All those kind of things that can help companies to be more flexible, to be more agile, to really get the control back. And the control back, that's something that we're going to help them with the Expereo One. One of the future visions that we have is that will evolve in a global partnership where people and companies interact in an automated way and do business and create solutions and enhance their services. But yeah, that's a bit on the far future.
Okay, thank you very much. And with those words, if you do allow me, my fellow panelists, I would like to actually cut it here because I think we could talk on more and more and more, but of course we have a time constraint, and we already went over more than 20 minutes. So if there are not any more, let's say, questions from the audience, from the participants coming, then first of all I would explain my gratitude to Bernard from Telstra, Ian from Nokia, Tofik from IX, and René from Expereo. And René, please send my regards to the management team, and thank you for sponsoring this this session, this CC-Webinar.Live panel session and sharing. We were talking about the digital transformation. I hope you out there got a little bit more, let's say, insight from the experts on this panel to see what's happening currently, what's going on, what are the possibilities, and what's going on hopefully in the future. In actual fact, we don't know, and as René nicely said, actually, people will stand up and come up with solution services, applications which we still don't know of. And Tofik, yes, absolutely, AI, IoT, Bernard will certainly kick in far more than we already know. And with these, thank you very much, my panelists. Thank you very much. It has been an honor. Thank you to the audience. You can follow us, of course, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and if you want to know more about Expereo.com, go to Expereo.com. So. With these words, Laura, I want to give it back to the studio back in Berlin, and it's thank you so much, gentlemen, and for me, it's ciao for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for hosting, Eric.
Thanks a lot, Eric, Laura.
It has been absolutely our pleasure. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Eric. Dear participants, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank René for a super interesting presentation, Eric for moderating, and panelists for joining us and sharing their valuable knowledge. And also thank you to the audience for participating and listening. We are looking forward to welcoming you in our future webinars and our physical events in Berlin, Almaty, and Rome throughout the September and August. Please visit our event portal for more information. This panel will be soon available on our CC Media portal and Webinar.Live page in recorded format for you to watch it. For more information, follow us on our social media and you will get updates on that. If you're interested to support and sponsor one of our future branded webinars, please contact CC team. Wish you all a good health and stay safe. Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.